Welcome back to another project. In this project, we are going to create a weight converter. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have an input which we can change the number that we prefer for the pounds. For example, I just write down 100 and simultaneously we see the result inside here for the weight in kilogram. After 10 seconds, the result is going to be removed and the input is empty. So we're going to use a method called setTimeout to do this trick. And also we have added an error situation. For example, if I put a minus number, we see an error here. For example, minus 100, we get please enter a valid number. So we're going to learn how to handle the error situation as well and how to remove that error message after 2 seconds. So first thing first, we need to add an event listener for the input, and by adding that event listener, we're going to call a function to do the desired functionality. In the next section, we're going to create the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, welcome back to the project. In this section, we're going to create the HTML part of the project. I have put the final version inside the browser in order for us to compare our code with the final version. The first things we need to do is to create an HTML file for our project. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code as a text editor, but you can use any text editor you prefer. So after opening the Visual Studio Code, we can close the Get Started tab, and in the File menu, we can click on the Open folder. So in this way, we can create the folder that we desire, and we're going to create the project inside that folder. I want to create the project inside the desktop. So I'm going to create a folder inside the desktop. I'm going to call it the name of the project. So let's change the name of the folder and then we call it Weight Converter. So after pressing enter, we have changed and renamed the folder. Now we can click on the select folder to select the folder. Here we can close the Get Started tab again, and inside the Explorer section, which is now by default on the folder that we have created, as you can see, Weight Converter. Now we can create our HTML file here by clicking on this icon, and we just name the file index.html and we press enter. Now we have the file on the right side. It's completely empty, but we can use an exclamation mark like this and use the Emmet abbreviations using this auto suggestion to create the HTML boilerplate, which gives us the doc type, an HTML tag, head tag, and the body tag. Let me explain each of them real quick, and then we can start doing our own project. So the first line is related to the doc type, which tells the browser which version of HTML we are using. For HTML5, we just need to have an HTML attribute here, just HTML, nothing else. Then we have the HTML tag, which is covering all the website, including the head tag and the body tag. The lang attribute inside the HTML tag, the opening tag, sets the language of the page, and in our case, we have chosen English for our project. Then we have the head tag, which includes the metadata tag and also the title tag. The first metadata tag is related to the chart set attribute, and we have chosen by default UTF-8, which is recommended by HTML5 because it nearly contains all the characters and symbols. So the users that are using and seeing our website won't have any problem seeing the characters and symbols inside the pages. Then we have the metadata tag, which sets this metadata tag is for compatibility reason, because the people who are still using Internet Explorer, but they don't get any support for that. So this is going to tell the Internet Explorer to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Edge, Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft is just now working on the Edge and does not support the Internet Explorer. So the Internet Explorer browser is going to automatically use the Edge instead. Then we have the viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the screen to the device's width. For example, if we have a mobile screen and the screen is smaller, the width of the browser is going to be set is smaller than the time. For example, we are using a bigger screen like tablet or a laptop screen. The next section inside this metadata tag is going to set the initial zoom level of the browser, which by default is 100% by just putting 1 here. Then we have the title, which sets the title of the page. Let me show you the title inside the browser. So now we can open the browser using the extension that you might probably install, or I highly recommend you install this. It's called Live Server. And then you can click on the Go Live to open the browser automatically into the port 5500 and with the index.html open here. So the title is document. Let's bring the website on the right side so we can see the changes in real time. And let's close the Explorer section to have more space. So let's bring this one here. So now we can change the title and see it inside the tab of the browser. We set the title to be the name of the project, which is Weight Converter. So you can see the changes here inside the browser. And now we can start working on the elements inside the browser, and we can put it inside the body section. So if you look at the final version, let me draw it for you. So we have a container here, which is just inside the center of the screen. This container is just an empty div with the class of container. Then we have a title here, a h1 tag, setting the title of the website, which is Weight Converter. Then we have another div here, which includes a label and also one input here on the right side, you can see. Then finally, we have something else here. Let me show it with a different color. So this is the place that you see the result. For example, when you change the pounds here, for example, I set 100 pounds, you see that the kilogram is 45. So, but if you make a mistake, for example, you don't put anything, you get an error here. For example, we just put 0. Please enter a valid number. So we're going to have another paragraph here for the error as well. So let's start adding these things to our website. So as I mentioned, we have a div with a class of container that is going to cover everything inside it. So we're going to write down .container, and using Emmet abbreviation, we can get a div with a class of container. Inside this container, we're going to have an h1 tag for the heading of the website, and we're going to add a class of heading. So later we're going to style this heading using CSS using this class. So we just write down h1.heading and we press enter. We get an h1 tag with the class of heading. And inside the h1 tag, we're going to say the name of the project, which is Weight Converter. We see it here inside the browser in real time. So we're going to use CSS to install this later and target that using this class. After that, we're going to have this label and the input. They are going to be inside a div. So we're going to have a div with a class of input-container. And this is going to cover a label, which is going to be for pounds. So I just write down pounds. And the text inside this label is pounds with a clone. We should see it now here. After the label, we're going to have an input. The input is going to be with the type of number. So we can add input colon number. And this is going to give us an input with the class of number. The name, we don't need a name, but we can just we can delete this name. For this project, we don't need the name. ID is going to be input because we want to target this one later using JavaScript. So we need to add an ID, and we can style this using a class with the name of input as well. And we can change the step here. So let me show you what the step is. Now, if you want to change the number, it goes 1 by 1. But you can change the steps. We just say, for example, I want it to be changed 0.1. So each of them is going to increase by 0.1. So that was it for this section for the input container. After that, we're going to have a paragraph saying your weight in kilogram is, and here we're going to have a span which is just an empty something, but we can target this one separately later using JavaScript. So we're going to add, for example, a hard-coded something here, for example, 300 for now. But later we're going to calculate this one based on the input and show it here. And this span is going to have an ID of result. All right. So we're going to add the error as well. So we're going to have a paragraph with a class of error and also with the ID of error because we want to change it later as well. Then we have inside the paragraph, we just write down now error for the styling reason. So we know how to style it. And later we're going to show this one dynamically using JavaScript as well. We can change the text, we can change its color and etc. using JavaScript. But for now, that is enough for the HTML part. So we have added the head tag, the inputs and the label. We have added the paragraph with the span, and also we have added another paragraph for the error. So in the next section, we're going to style the project using CSS, and we're going to make and achieve this styling, which is a new morphism design using CSS. So see you in the next section for the CSS part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to style the project using CSS. If you look at the final version here, you can see that we have a container here that is going to be just aligned in the center of the browser, both vertically and horizontally. And also we have a title here. We just want to change the color, and then we have this input section. And finally, we have two sections for the result and an error. And also we're going to set the background color of the screen to be these three colors, which we are going to use the linear gradient for adding the background color. So I'm going to show you how to do it inside the CSS file. So the first things we need to do is to create the CSS file. So inside the Visual Studio Code, we're going to open the Explorer section. And here on the left, inside the Explorer section, we click on this icon to create a new file, and we call it style.css, and we press enter. Now we have the file on the right side here inside this tab. But before using this file, we need to add a link to this file within the HTML code. So we need to come back to the index.html. Let me close this. And here after the title tag, we need to add a link to the CSS tag. We just write link and we click on the third auto suggestion, the one with the CSS. This is going to give us a link with the relationship between the index.html and style.css. And here the href attribute defines the destination of the file. And as both files are located at the same directory, we need to just write down here style.css. So now we can use the CSS file and we can start styling our project. The first place we want to style is this body section. We want to change its background color and want to bring everything to the center using display flex. So we're going to target the body by just writing down body. Let's see it inside the final this working project tab. First, we remove the default margin by setting it to 0. This is going to remove the space around all elements. Then we can change the background color. We just say background. We want to use linear gradient or linear gradient. So I want the color to be this way. So like a first color, second color, and third color. So we can just set that by just using to left top, and we set the first color to be yellow. We set the second color to be light blue. And finally, we set the last color to yellow as well. So to yellow, and you can see this is yellow, blue, and yellow. But you can see it's just repeated 3 times because the height of the screen is not defined. So we need to set the min height to be 100% of the viewport height, which is going to change the height to the device's height. I've just added some zoom level here. If you remove the zoom level, you can see this is just the height of the browser. And now we can change the display to flex to bring everything to the center. So we can change the justify content to center to bring everything to the center horizontally. Then we can use align item center to bring everything to the center vertically. The other things I want to do for the body section, I want to change the font family, and I want to set it to be Courier New. So this is my favorite font, and but you can use any font that you prefer in your project. Let's set the color of the font to be dark cyan. This is not kind of visible now, but we want to add another background color for the container. So this is going to be better. So after this, we're going to install the container, this container, which is covering everything. This div with the class of container. So we add a div with the class of, we have the div with the class of container. We want to target that because it is a class. We need to add a dot here. And after the dot, we need to say container. And let's first change the background color so we can see everything clearly. I want to set a color RGBA. RGBA stands for red, green, blue, alpha. For the red, green, and blue, I want to add 255, which gives us the white color. And I want to add for the alpha, which is setting the transparency level. I want it to be 0.3, which is transparent, and you can see the color through it. So this is going to give us a glassy design, or they call it neomorphism. Okay. So after that, we're going to add a padding. So this is a space around the element inside this container, and we're going to set it to be 20 pixels. In order to this container to be more visible, we can add some box shadow. We can add some shadow around it, so you make it more visible. So we add a box shadow. We set the x-axis shadow to be 0, y-axis to be 4 pixels. We can see it here. 10 pixels blurriness. So this is going to blur the shadow around the element, but we have more on the y-axis because it has 4 pixels here. Then we want to change the color. We don't want it to be green. We can use RGBA again, but this time instead of white, we give it 000 for black and 0.3 for transparency. So this is going to give us a dark black color, but with some transparency. So it's similar to a shadow effect. Let's make the around this container rounded by using border radius, and we set the border radius to be 10 pixels. So this is the size of the container. We can set the width to be 85%. And then this 85% is going to cover 85% of the full size. As you can see, the space around it changes by changing the browser size. But I want this one to be smaller when we have a bigger screen. So the simplest way is to use max width of 450 pixels like this. So this is kind of nice now. So that's it for the container section. Let's continue with the other section. So after that, after this container, we have this heading, the weight converter. So we can install that heading here. Or I feel the heading, the size, everything is fine. We don't need to touch it. So we just install this input container, which is covering the label and the input. So I'm going to install the input container. So we just say dot input container to target that class. And I want them to be next to each other, but with the space between them. So I change the display to flex and set the justify content to be a space between. So this is going to separate two elements inside a div. And let's use align item center to bring them exactly in the center vertically. So maybe you you don't notice it, but when we increase the size of the input, this pound is a bit off, and it's a bit here, so it's not in the middle if we don't use align item center. So let's increase the size of the font to be 18 pixels, and also we set the font weight to be 700, which makes it a bit bolder. Then we can target this input. The input has a class of input here, as you can see. So we can target that one by just saying dot input. I want to change the padding. So let's add some padding, and this is going to be 10 pixels. So let's see, inside the final version, we have a placeholder, but we didn't add for our own website. We can add a placeholder simply by just inside the input, we add a placeholder, and we just say like this one, enter number. So we just say enter number like this. So now we can see the styling and effects here as well. So after setting up the padding, we can set the width. I want the width to be 70%. So this is going to help us to have a responsive design. So when we have a bigger size, we have a bigger input, or if we open the dev tools and we choose this section for the mobile responsive design, if we decrease the size, you can see the input size decreases as well. So this is going to help us to create a responsive design. But if you set, for example, with 200 pixels, it works now, but when we decrease the size, it goes off the container. So the best design is to use percentage for the width. Okay, so that's it. So let's bring this to the right side. So after the width, we're going to add a background color. So we just say background, and I want it to have a RGBA with a white color and 30% transparency. And also I want the border color as well to make it more beautiful. So the border color is going to be an RGBA 2 with white color, but the transparency I want it to be 50%, which gives us this beautiful design. And finally, let's add some font size of 18 pixels to make it bigger. We can add some optional border radius as well to make a 10 pixel border radius. We can set the color. Now, if you type, you see the color is black. We can set the color to be dark green. And when we click on it, I don't want to see this border. So we can remove that by using outline none. This is completely optional. Actually, the outline is recommended for websites. So it's good for people with disability to understand the website. But just for the purpose of our own website, we're going to remove it because this is our preferences. So you can keep it, the outline. You can change the color of outline as well. It's totally up to you. So after the input, we're going to install this error. I want to make the color of the error, this paragraph with the class of error. I want the color of the error to be red. So I just target that one by just using .error, and I set the color to be red. As simple as that. All right, so that was it for our CSS part of the project. We have made the website responsive for all sizes, including the mobile and the desktop. And also we have added the background color using the linear gradient. And finally, we have created a glassy design using the RGBA color for the background of this container. In the next section, we're going to add more functionality to the website, like the final version. So we're going to calculate the kilogram based on the pounds. And also we want to just add this error message if the number is 0 or less than 0. So in the next section, we're going to work on the more functionality. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, welcome back. In the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to add more functionality to the project using JavaScript. So if you look at the final version, we have this input. If we change the input, we go up we see the real-time change inside this section, which is showing the kilogram conversion of the pounds. And if we go, for example, we just write down minus something, we get an error. Please enter a valid number. And the error is going to go away after 2 seconds. If you look at this, goes away after 2 seconds. And the number here, if you write down 10, this one is going to removed after 10 seconds. This one and this one gets empty too. Just pay attention. So we're going to use a set timeout, which is going to call a function after a set period of time. So we're going to, for example, after 10 seconds or 2 seconds, we're going to remove something or set the value of some inputs to empty string. So we're going to learn how to use set timeout in this section. And also we're going to learn how to get the information from this input and simultaneously change the output the other section. So the first things we need to do is to create a file for the JavaScript. So we need to go back to the Visual Studio Code and we open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here we can create a new file and we call it index.js. Before using the JavaScript file, we need to add a link to the JavaScript file within the HTML file, and we need to do it at the end of the body tag. And on the contrary of the link tag to the style.css, which is located in the head tag, the JavaScript link tag should be at the end of the body tag. The reason for this is because we need the elements to be loaded, and we get the elements and give it to the JavaScript. Otherwise, we don't have access to the elements if we put a script tag at the beginning or in the head tag. So we can just write down SC and we click on the second auto suggestion, the one with the SRC. So now we have this script tag. The SRC attribute defines the destination of the JavaScript file. And as both files are located at the same directory, we can use and just write down index.js for the destination. And now we are able to use JavaScript in our project. Let's close the Explore section to have more space. And let's bring the website to the right side so we can see the changes in real time. The first thing I want to do is remove this error inside the HTML file because we want to create this text using JavaScript. So we don't want to see anything at the beginning. So now we go to the JavaScript. The things we want to do is to add an event listener to this input. So we need to bring this input inside the JavaScript. If you remember here, the input has an ID of input. So we can target that one using the method called getElementById. So we need to create a constant and we call it input element. And this is going to be equal to document because we want to target document inside the browser. And this is going to we can call this method, which is getElementById. And the ID we want to pass here is input because the ID of the input was input. So now we have access to this element. We can add the add event listener to this input. So we just say input element dot add event listener, and the event we want to add to this one is input. So any change happens to the input, we want to call a function, and we want to call the function update results. So let's create the function at the top here. So we create a function and we call it update results. And for now, we just console log something. For example, we just console log change. So now if you open the console inside the browser using F12, let's bring this one to the bottom so you can see. So this is on the console. If we change something here, for example, I change the number, any change you see there, we are console logging the word change here. So we have created the add event listener correctly, and also we are using the function correctly as well. And instead of this console logging just a change, I want to console log whatever inside this input. We have access to this input element. So we have the input element. We can target its value by just saying dot value. So now, for example, if you write down here 100, we get the 100 each time a number change. For example, you do 100.23 and you see everything here. So we can get the value of this input by just targeting its value. So now we want to make firstly the error. So we create a condition here. For example, we say if the input element dot value is less than 0 or is none. Is none means it doesn't have any value. So if it's empty or it's less than 0, we want to do something. So we just say input dot value. If the input dot value is none or it's less than 0, we want to let's close this. So we want to do something. So we want to just first things first, we want to get this error. So the error has the ID of error. So we can target that one here by using the getElementById method. So we create a constant and we just call it error element. And this is going to be equal to document because we want to target all the browser. And we just say getElementById and the ID we want to pass is error. So now we can have and manipulate this error element. So we just write down here error element, and if you want to change the inner text to be, for example, please enter a correct or valid number. So now if the number is 0, we should see the change inside the error element. So let's see what so we have called this one, and the ID was error, and the inner text is this one as well. Let's add some condition here too. So let's use -10. So now we can see the please enter a valid number appears here. All right. So, we didn't include the 0 here. So I'm gonna add a less than or equal 0 here. So now if we just if 0 or less than 0, we see that please enter a valid number. But if it's more than 0, we want to remove this error, or we want to remove it after a specific time. So we can do that by just adding a setTimeout method here. So we just say setTimeout. The setTimeout has two things, a function and a number. So we're going to create a function here like this. And this is the second parameter is the how many seconds you want this function, after how many seconds you want to call this function. For example, I want to call it after 2 seconds. This is milliseconds, so 2000 milliseconds is equal to 2 seconds. So we want to do something. For example, we want to set the result. We set the error element dot inner text. We want to set that to an empty string. All right. So now we get the error. After 2 seconds, it's going to away. Okay, you see, but it has some problem because if you get another error, but the previous time is not reset. So because maybe someone persisting to put the error, you get a lot of these things. So, and then you don't get an error. So we want to reset this setTimeout each time we change the number here. So here, before the setTimeout, first we need to just create a name for the setTimeout. So at first, at the top, we create a let, and we just create a name for that one. For example, we just say error time, and then we set this error time equal to this setTimeout. And before calling that setTimeout, we need to use the clear timeout, and we pass this error time. This is going to reset the timeout, the setTimeout. So now, if you go down, you see always we get the error and it doesn't go away. So until I stop, and this is going to go away. So after also removing this, make it empty, I want to actually make this input, remove the value from the input as well. So now it's -0.2, we get the error. But after removing the error, I want to make this one to be removed too. So we need to have we just set the input element. So we need to just target that input element we can just put it here. We just say input element dot value, because we want to change its value, and we want to set the value to be, for example, an empty string as well. So we just say -1, and then after 2 seconds, this is going to be cleared, and also the error is going to be removed as well. So we can have access to the top number, but we cannot go back here. Okay, so that was it for the error part. So if there is no error, so we want to do other things. So if there is a positive number or there is something here, we want to do other things. So we want to have access to this 300. So this 300, let me remove this 300. We want access to this ID of results. So we're going to bring that item here as well. We just create a constant and we just call it result element. And this is going to be equal to document to target all the browser. And we can use get element by ID to get that element which has the ID of result. So now we can manipulate this result element here. So here we just set the result element dot inner text. We want this one to be converted to weight. So we want firstly the value of the input element. So we just say input element dot value, and we want to divide this one to 2.2. So this is going to give us the, let's test it. So you see the number here. Sometimes if you put something else, you get an error. So we need to always convert this value to number by just adding a plus here. This is going to convert even a string to number. So for when you're using an input with the type of number, always remember to add this plus. Otherwise, you get some issue. And also, I don't want too many decimals for the number. So I can fix that one by just adding a method inside the JavaScript called toFixed. And this we want to set the decimal numbers to just 2. And now we just have 2 decimal numbers here. All right. So let's close this console. We don't need it anymore. Also, I want to remove this one, make it empty, and also remove the result after 10 seconds. So as a practice, it's very similar to the error. You can pause the video and do it yourself and try it yourself and compare it with the one I do after you see my result. So pause the video and do the challenge. All right. I hope that you have done it yourself because it's a good practice, because I have already done it one time. So it's very similar. So let's do it here. So we're going to have a set timeout. So set timeout, as I mentioned, it has a function and it has a number here for calling the function after this amount. For example, I wanted to call the function after 10 seconds. So inside the function, first thing first, I want to set the result element dot inner text to be an empty string. And also I want to set the input element dot value to be an empty string as well. So, and then as I mentioned here, because you get a conflict, for example, if when I'm increasing the number, after 10 seconds, it's going to remove my number. As you can see, it gets kind of messy. Then I cannot do anything here. So you need to reset the set timeout. So I'm going to call and create another variable called result time. And then I just make this one equal to this set timeout. And here I can just use the clear timeout method and call this result time. So now whatever we do here, we just increase the number even more than 10 seconds. Each time we change the number, actually, we are resetting the set timeout. But as soon as I stop, after 10 seconds, we're going to see that the input is going to be empty. And also we're going to remove this number here as well, as you can see now. So that was it for our project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. We have learned how to use set timeout method, how to reset the set timeout, and how to call a function while we are changing the input so that you can see the the number simultaneously change in the output. And also we have learned how to handle the error if we want a certain condition in our project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. See you in the next project.